In this video, we're going to discuss some of the feature services that are available in OpenRoads Designer. You can use these feature service connections to import data like county lines or highways or roads or lakes, rivers, and stuff like that. That is from a different service like ArcGIS or the Esri services and stuff like that. So we'll show you how it works, and maybe you can utilize that in production for various reasons. Get to those feature services, there's a couple different workflows that you can work under. If you change your workflow to the geospatial context, and underneath the home ribbon, you have your feature services right here. That's one location you can get to it, or you can go underneath the MO.CAD detailing standards and go to the utilities ribbon, and you can find those same services right here. We'll just work underneath this particular workflow right here for the MO.CAD detailing standards for this demonstration. Now, a couple things to be aware of whenever you're using these feature services is, number one, whenever you attach that connection and then later on you query that data that's in that connection, whenever it brings that data into the CAD file, it's going to take on the active level that you currently have set up underneath your attributes. So if I go back to like the drawing ribbon, you see that right now my level is set to scratch 1. So if I query a particular data or connection or multiple connections, it's going to take on that active level. So if you want those to be on different levels, make sure you put it underneath the correct level that you want first and then query that data. And we'll show that here in a little bit in this video. The other thing that you want to be aware of is your view constraints, because what it does is whenever it queries that data, it looks at your current view, and whatever your view constraints are, it tries to query that data and put it into the file. You want to make sure you zoomed in to the exact constraints of what you want before you query the data. You don't want to be zoomed out really far, because if you try to query that data, it's going to try to extract all that data in that view constraints and try to put it in there, and it may take a lot of time for it to do it. So just make sure your view is basically exactly where you want and what the data that you want before you query that data. And you'll see how that works here in just a second. So that's just a couple things to be aware of for the active level and of course your view constraints whenever you try to query that data. So let's go to the utilities ribbon and let's select new. Now normally the very first time whenever you select that feature service connection, it may take a little bit for it to load up, but eventually it will pop up. And then from here you just go to the services. If you know a particular URL link that you may want to connect to, you could type in that URL link, but we also have some predefined ones that you can utilize if you want to also. Let's go to the services, and in here you have some predefined services that you can attach. So I'm going to attach 3 of them. I'm going to attach this one. I'll just double left click on it and click on OK to attach that service. You will get this box right here for the actual service right here, which is the server, and then what items that are underneath that server. Mainly on all these, it's just going to have one connection that you can attach. So you just make sure those are check marked and go ahead and click on connect. And it's going to connect to that service. And then I'll do the same thing again. Let's say I want to do the mo.roads and routes. Just double left click on it. Click on OK. Click on connect to that, and I'll do one more, which is this one right here for the rivers and streams. Double click on it, click on OK, and I will go ahead and connect to it. So now basically we have 3 connections set up that we can utilize. Now nothing has showed up yet, and that is because we haven't actually queried that data to bring it into the file. We just connected to that service. Then you can come through here and use some of these other options. Now one thing that I did forget to mention at the very beginning of this video also, which is crucial, is of course you need to have the correct coordinate system assigned to the file. If you don't have a coordinate system assigned to the file, these connection services will not work. So for whatever job that you're working with, make sure you attach the correct coordinate system, and then from there these feature services are going to land in the correct spot. For our example here, we're just using this right here, this coordinate system. But like I said, you just connect to whichever coordinate system that is being used for your particular project. So we have them set now. You do have the option to delete those connections. If you didn't want those anymore, you could actually disconnect from those connections. You just select the ones that you'd want to disconnect from and just hit delete and able to remove that connection. If you go to edit, these are the connections right here that it's going to try to bring in whenever you do the query of the data. So like right now we have 3 connections set, and I'm going to go ahead and set these to different levels. That way they're placed on different levels to maybe filter those out or whatnot later on in my project. So I could actually come in here and turn these particular connections off, so whenever I query that data here in a little bit, it'll be placed underneath the correct level. If I don't do that, if I query all this data, it's all going to be put underneath the same level. So you just have to determine on how you want to put that data in, depending on what level that you want to place it on or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and do the Mo county boundaries first and just turn off these 2 right here for right now. And then if I'm ready to query the data, I'll go back to the drawing workflow here. I'm just going to go ahead and set it to scratch 1. You set it to whichever level that you want. And then now if I come in here and I query that data, you'll see down in your message there, it's going to query it. And now you'll see that that data is brought in. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing and go back to the edit. Turn this one here off. Turn this one here on for the roads and routes. Click on OK. I'll change my level to something else. Let's just say scratch 2. Then I will go ahead and query that data. You'll see down below here it's trying to query that data. It's looking at it. It's going to try to bring that data in. And now you'll see some of those routes. And then I will go ahead and do the same thing. I'll go back to the drawing. Change my level to maybe level scratch 3. Go to utilities. Turn this one here off. And for my rivers and streams, I will go ahead and turn it on. Click on OK. And go ahead and query that data. Now in this one here, it didn't show up anything. So maybe in that particular view right there, there was nothing there for it to pull. So you just have to go through there and look at those and determine which ones that you want to pull and whatnot for those connections. Now let's go ahead and review some of this data. So as I zoom out, you'll see it queried that data. If I hover over top this county right here, which is Miller County, you'll see that it's on the level of scratch 1. It does have an item attached to it also. If I hover over one of these routes, you'll see that it's on level scratch 2. So like I said, whenever you import that data, it all depends on what level that you have it currently on, so it places that data accordingly. Another thing that may be some benefit for you is, let's say we select it, and let's actually go to the properties of it. In the properties, you can come through here and look at some of the metadata that's attached to that. So like here it says what county it is, what the county seat is, how many square miles it is, how many acres it is, and so forth. So that gives you some general information about that particular county. If I go to one of the routes, it's going to give me some metadata for the route. Let me go ahead and zoom into this one here. So if I select it, get to the properties of it, you'll see that this is Route 54, US Route 54, what direction it's going, what the length is, and all the other stuff about that particular section through there. So you can look at that and maybe get some important data for like wetland stuff or routes or what the county is and all the other connections that we have out there, depending on what data that you're bringing in. So that's kind of one good benefit about it. Another thing is with that data, you can come in here and change the actual symbology of it. So let's just take, for instance, right here, let's say these counties right here. By default, it's going to be filled in. So if I come in here and I select it, and I can get to the properties of it, actually let me do it right here so I can see all the stuff. You'll see what color it is, and that's the actual boundary of it. It does have a fill type assigned to it and so forth. So you can come through there and change those as needed. Now with this particular version, it does bring this box up for the properties. It says object reference not set in an instance of the object. Now one way you can kind of get around that If you want to change the color of it, is you'd come in here and go to the properties of it. And for the color, if you know what color that you're wanting to put it on from our MoDOT palette, you can actually type in the number. So let's say like our line style right there, or excuse me, our color, we want that to be a white color, on a black background like what we have here. So you can come through here and actually swipe through that number and type in 0, and I'll tab to lock it in. And now that symbology will be white. And also apply that fill color to it also. If I don't want a fill color in there, I can go back down to the properties of it. And for the fill color, you can either come in here and type in no fill and go and click on OK, and it will remove the fill on it. So that's a way you can get around and not having that fill. Now, like on these here, if I go to the properties of it, I'll get to the properties of it. You'll see the color is still set for this one, the color set for this one. If you don't want a fill color, but you haven't changed the color yet, you still get that box that says this object or object reference is not set. One way you can get around that is you'd come in here and for the fill, remove that verbiage there and type in no fill. And then accept it. And then it will remove that fill. Now that outside boundary is still a certain color, so you probably want to go ahead and adjust it. And I'll just adjust this one here to number 2. So that's a method that you can go through there and change the colors if you want to. That is just optional. These other attributes seem like they do work. So if I can get to the properties of it, like if you want this to be a dashed, or if you want to change the weight of it to be something different versus 0, maybe you want that to print out to be a thicker line weight, you can come through there and change those as needed. Those seem like they work just fine. It's the color that it has an issue with. But I showed you a couple workarounds for that, so you can change those as needed. And that works the same thing for the routes here. Like this one here where it's westbound. Maybe I want that to be a different color. I'll just change this one here to number 3. And then this one here, I will just go ahead and swipe through that and change it to 4. So that's where you can go through there and change those colors as needed. It does seem like after you've changed it to one of those numbers that we have for our color palette, after that, the actual color table does work, and you can assign whatever color that you want. So those are some ways you can go through there and change some of that data that's for those connection services. Now keep in mind that you're still using that connection service. So it all depends on what gets updated with that connection service or whatever, and how it's going to look at that data. If you want to leave that connection service assigned to the file, that's fine. If you actually want to use it, maybe you want to use it with some other DGN files that you have and so forth, you could actually take this data and you could copy it into the file. That way it's just data that's in the file and then start working with it. That may be another method that you can do it. But like I said, right now, these are still connection services. So if I need to remove that connection service, I can come through here and hit clear. And what it's going to do is actually just going to go through here and remove that data. So if I hit clear, you'll see that you no longer have those services being queried in this file. I still have the connection services still attached. I'm just not querying any of that data at this current time. Those are just some stuff that you can utilize using the feature services that are out there with those connections, those feature services connection. You may find some use for those for particular reasons with your design project or environmental impacts and so forth, and maybe you can utilize that accordingly in your project.